extraterrestrials. Did you read that? The UN ambassador, the UN has named Maslin Hoffman, who is a Malaysian astrophysicist, to head up the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs. And her responsibility is to be prepared should extraterrestrials make contact with Earth, that the Earth then could have her to represent us to the aliens. Now, I'm proud of the United Nations in a way, because at least this is a real act of faith and hope on their part. It takes a lot of faith and some hope to go to the trouble of naming a UN ambassador to aliens. But even though that does take a lot of faith and hope, it's also an act of abandonment, in my mind, of reaching out to the known God of the universe. Because obviously, if we as a people, if all the nations gather together, if they should find anybody, or if they should create any office, it should be for us to reach out to our Creator, right? To the sovereign of the universe. So I'm heartened that they have faith and hope, but I'm disheartened by what they're putting their faith and hope in. And it's also a clear indication to me that they'd rather pursue something which is impossible, right, and which costs them nothing, than to pursue that which is sure, but which would cost them everything. Listen, you can pursue spirituality today, or you can pursue Christ. And that's really the charge in question for all of us, for everybody all over the world, because God made us spiritual people. That's a craving as real as the need for food and for drink in our lives, and for oxygen. We're spiritual people. We want to know spiritual fulfillment. So you have an obligation today. You have to make the decision. Am I going to pursue spirituality today, or am I going to pursue Christ? One is a gamble, perhaps a hopeless gamble. You could go out of here today and dabble in transcendental meditation, or in trying to find some kind of energy in crystals, or you could pursue. You could go live on a mountaintop for a time, or you could do any number of things to pursue the spiritual, and it's a gamble for you. Or the other thing, which is pursuit of Christ, that's a sure thing. One requires nothing of you, by the way. To pursue a life of spirituality, it requires nothing of you, because you can make it whatever you want it to be. Any of us can be spiritual like that. Okay, you can go buy an Enya CD and play it, and you could probably get to a pretty good place if you wanted to. But following Christ, pursuing Christ, will cost you everything today. Okay? Jesus is God made manifest. His incarnation is a confrontation today. His becoming flesh and dwelling with us here on earth, his whole life on earth, is a confrontation. It's a call to consider. It's heaven on earth for all of us to see and to know. And it's a confrontation in that way. It's a call to decide to lay down your life and follow him or not. And so that's the charge we have here today. And especially in this passage. Are you going to pursue the impossible in your life? Are you going to chase the mechanical rabbit around the track? Or are you going to pursue that which can be had, but which will be had at great cost? And so that's the charge I want us to look at here today. Really what Christ is doing here in this passage, and what he does oftentimes, is he has to convince God's people, his people, that they cannot have perfection, they cannot have a perfect relationship with God in him, but they can have something very close. And he's always trying to convince them of this. And so that's what I want you to see in these passages too. The first thing I want you to consider today, the first question I'm going to have you try to answer is, are you longing today, or are you receiving? Are you longing, or are you receiving? Look at me at verse 25, if you would. Here Jesus begins by saying, "Truly, truly, I say to you, An hour is coming and now is when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear shall live. So that's the question. Are you longing today, or are you receiving? Death is longing. Life is knowing. Okay. In longing, there is only death. That is what kills us. Okay. It is longing for something that we cannot have. Life is in knowing and enjoying and having what is possible for us to have. You know, death is a drought. Life is the rain. Death is being lost. Life is being found. Death is if and when. Life is here and now. You know, death is the wind, but life is the banner unfurled, so to speak. And for all of you out here today who are full of longing, I understand that. But this is not the time for longing anymore. Because Christ is here, he says an hour is coming and which now is. When the dead will hear my voice, and will be raised to life. And so, whenever Jesus says truly, truly, he doesn't do it all the time. But here in this beginning of this passage, he says truly, truly. That's his way of saying, listen to me. Pay attention. Wake up. Okay. What I'm trying to tell you is very important. The sheep, the sheep that he is coming to minister to, he sees them as listless and anxious and full of weary worriness. Okay, they're all weary and they're worried. And he just sees them as listless, and he's trying to say, hey, listen, pay attention. You should be receiving from me life today. One of my favorite passages is from the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 12 says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but desire fulfilled is a tree of life.